Welcome back to The Truth with Trinity, and I am your host, Trinity. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I wanted to send you a warm welcome. Here, I talk about issues that happen within the Black community, hopefully for some type of resolution or at least some food for thought to go about your daily way. So, without further ado, I like to jump into this episode's topic, which is called A Lady Anyway. So, I want to start off by making a small disclaimer. Everything I say in this episode comes from a loving standpoint as a black woman who wants to see black people do better. And the only way that we're going to do better is if we, focus and solve and be honest with each other on, things that are going on between us within our communities. So I want to start off by saying, as black women, we deal with a lot from, black men. And the black man has been through a lot. He eternalizes a lot. The hatred that is inflicted upon him in this, society, and even from maybe some of their mothers, and because of their mothers' dealings, and the abuse from other men, and maybe it has been inflicted upon him. There's so many different scenarios why some, not all, but some of our black men or men in general, it's not just black men, but we're talking about our communities here, about some of their hatred that they inflict upon black women and children. Sometimes this takes the place of even fathers and uncles and male cousins, sexual violence. And even, let's be honest, there's some women that, lost their femininity a long time ago, and they may have done abusive things toward female children and male children. But this topic is about, this episode is about a woman's femininity. So, it's on both sides. So there's men and women. But a lot of times, a lot of women have, been concerned and complaining about, the black man's violence and sexual abuse, especially, growing up in the home. Um, a lot of times, you'll hear about, there's so many websites about women's abuse, but they never go into the effects of it. You'll hear a lot about when a man is raped or a boy is raped, how it takes away from their manhood, but you don't really hear about the woman's womanhood being stripped from her and the effects that it has on the female. And I wanted to start off with the definition of womanhood. This is the state or condition of being a woman. The qualities considered to be natural to or characteristics of a woman. And I wanted to start off by discussing growing up with sexual abuse in the home and the effects that it has on, our women. For one thing, it can make you ashamed of your body parts. So these are the parts that make you a woman. It can make you ashamed. It can make you resent them. It can make you hate the fact that you were born a woman. And I think a lot of that is because, if you've been violated physically, sexually, it makes you not even want to have those body parts because at least they can't be violated. So it kind of makes you, some women, they grow up and they don't even want to wear dresses. They don't want to wear bras. They don't want to wear anything that has anything to do with resembling being a female because they're sometimes consciously and subconsciously they are afraid and they don't want that male attention. They don't want a man to look at them. They don't want a man to look at them romantically or even in a sexual way. So some women will try to tie down their breasts. Some women will try to put on excessive, baggy clothes or male clothes, because at least they can, maybe talk to a man or be in a man's presence without him trying to gain sexual favors. And a lot of times that, can stem from a sexual violence or assault that happened even as an adult, a teenager, and it can definitely stem from the sexual assaults happening from a very young age. So that's one of the effects of sexual abuse, growing up with sexual abuse. It can make you hate male authority, and that can affect a lot of relationships in the future with males. Um, Being for the fact that, if you've been sexually assaulted, especially at a young age, and you were forced to do something that you did not want to do, and it was a male, and when you grow up, you do everything in your power to basically buck their authority. You don't anything they say, you want to say the opposite. um you don't want them to touch you, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you don't know that guy. But even in intimate relationships where you're in a relationship for years, you may still have resistance. It's that resistance, even at the job or anywhere, just that resistance because you couldn't fight it off when you were younger, and the sexual assault, or even as a grown up, if you were overpowered. So a lot of times, you know, subconsciously, you try to resist anything a man may say or do, even if he means well, because this is your chance now to resist. Even in situations where you may not have to be defensive, it just creates that defensive guard, in a lot of women. Um, Another effect that it can have is it can make a young woman promiscuous. And this is promiscuous also in a way of having sex without feelings. And I think this derives from, especially when this happens to young girls at a young age, sexual abuse and rape and, molestation from non family members and uh, family members. Um, because especially at a young age, like I said, once again, because you're having this encounter that you don't want to have. Your innocence is being taken, so you place your mind in a different place when the acts are happening. You're blacking out. A woman may black out. She may pretend like she's somewhere else, the young female child. And what that does is that separates you from your own body. So you're having sex, well, not having sex, but, your body is performing the sexual acts by force, and it's causing your brain to be somewhere else. And I think with a lot of young women, that this has happened to, that's what makes them able to have sex without feelings, because of that trauma as a child, having to, be off somewhere else, your mind somewhere else while the physical assault is happening to your body. And, like I said, once again, some women grow up and they're able to, have that switch on and off. And sometimes it's just permanently off to be able to perform sexual acts and not have any feelings stemming back from, the abuses and trauma of childhood. Another thing is, another effect that sexual abuse has on, you know, a female is that it can cause you to be aggressive, even if the female appears to be feminine. She wears dresses, lace, the stereotypical, female. Um, she can still be aggressive. Uh, you know, just different, mannerisms that are unladylike. Um, and it can also, of course, take the approach of, being masculine. And this is, no, no pun intended or no offense to the lesbian community. Everybody has the right to be who they want to be. But some women are lesbian and they choose to go down that road because they are fed up to the point where they cannot communicate or even want to see a man in that light. Their mind and body rejects some men because of their past experiences with men. This can, like I said, be from childhood all the way up, to adulthood. And that the thing is, a lot of times with being aggressive, especially towards men, like I said, it goes back to, being in a place where you were not able to defend yourself. And then you see in society, the power that a man has to walk, to go out, to do this, and he's not hit on, to the magnitude. He's not catcalled to the magnitude that a woman is. So I'm not saying that men don't get, sexually harassed. I'm not saying that men, but the percentage, if we want to be honest with ourselves, and if there's any men listening, the percentage is higher for a woman to be sexually assaulted, harassed, or catcalled, or some type of, being approached in a way that she's not comfortable. And I think, psychologically, some women, they feel like, well, I can protect myself by being one of the boys, so to speak. Women, we can't be men, but psychologically, if I'm acting aggressive, then I'm protecting myself from anything happening to me. So I think that happens a lot. And I think another effect that it has on women, another point is it causes mistrust in men. You know, um, it just breaks down the trust. And I think, that's what God designed men for a lot of things, but it's for a woman to have her own personality and individuality, but to be able to trust a man, especially if it's her father, if it's her brother, male relatives, and, if it's her partner, relationship and marriage. Um, and I think a lot of that's been destroyed, in our society because of the gender blending. You know, like I said, once again, I'm not knocking anybody for, who and what they want to be, but, there's such a bland term now for, there's no roles. And I believe that God set them forth for a reason, the measurements of man and woman and the earth for a reason. And, a man, used to symbolize, that you could trust him. And I think, especially when it happens when you're a young girl, with the males in your family, it can create a lot of mistrust in men. And then, for some women, they are strong enough, even from sexual abuse, in their family to go on and seek out different relationships. But a lot of times, coming from an abusive background, a woman may mean well, but she tends to be attracted to men that resembles her past and the men in her family. That's why it's important for the fathers to set a good example of what their daughter should date, because a lot of times, even if we don't realize it, we tend to date a man or be attracted or gravitate toward a man that was like the males in our family, especially our father. And if that was abusive, an abusive man, you may mean well, your intentions may mean well, but things like codependency and borderline personality disorders can develop, because you're attracted to something that may be harmful to you. They call that, I think, the Stockholm syndrome, where you're attracted to something that's abusive to you and pain feels good to you. So those are things that we want to work on as women within ourselves, especially, if, those traits or personality, are exhibited or displayed within us. Um, I wanted to talk about women, so I wanted to flip it a little bit. Um, Sometimes, you know, when we have female friends and we are at the workplace, sometimes there may be a woman that may try to strip your femininity away. There's, women, not all women, but there are women that their femininity has been taken a long time ago. They threw it away, they kicked it away in the trash can. They could care less about trying to maintain any feminine characteristics or attributes about themselves. And that's fine because, like I said, everyone has the individual right to be who they are. But they also try to strip it away in others, and they hate when they see other women with it. And sometimes that's because they wish that they could be feminine, but they let their light be dampened a long time ago. So these type of women may make comments, may throw underhanded comments about your appearance or who you are or how you act or how you talk, how you walk, because these are all characteristics of being a woman. Your poise, your etiquette, how you speak, the tone at which you speak, taking a bath every day, um, you know, all these things, fixing your hair, all these things going to, being a woman. And some of them, um, like I said, once again, are upset because they lack it. So some women lack being a woman, have lost the desire or let someone dampen their desire to be a woman, and they may resent other women who may have the same issues that they've had growing up, but they chose to walk a different road. They chose to still be a lady anyway, despite the odds. So I wanted to also go into, you know, how hard it is sometimes for especially, um, African American women to seek help. It's harder for the black woman to recover from psychological and physical abuse because a lot of times the counselors and the psychiatrists are white and they cannot relate regardless of the level of their profession. They can't relate to our lifestyle, and some of them may try, and I'm not saying that there isn't any good ones, but in our community, we are a lot of times are taught not to talk to psychiatrists, not to tell them our business, because there is a history of when a black woman or a black man tries to talk to a professional, with others they may be willing to treat and talk to them, but they are quick to try to put us on a gurney and slap us with medication and to medicate us. So a lot of times we, I think as people of color, we don't feel comfortable with talking to psychiatrists. And to be quite honest, like I said, this isn't all white people. This could be there. There are, I'm pretty sure, some good psychiatrists that are very skilled in their profession to the point where they also have empathy for other people, other than, their culture of people. But um, they, to basically make a long story short with that, it's tough to, seek outside help. So if you have the help, it's great, but sometimes it can be tough. And my last part I'd like to talk about is how to heal, though. So we've talked about the effects of, sexual and mainly sexual abuse. And I wanted to talk about how to heal from it, though, because, that's the main part right there. I wanted to say first is never lose sight of the little girl in you. And what I mean by that is, there was a point in time where you were happy, you were free, you know, a point in time before anything bad had ever happened to you. And I encourage you to hold on to that. Hold on, even if it's just a little grain of memory, hold on to that and nurture that, and build from that. It's almost like a forest being destroyed, and there's one seed left to be able to replenish, okay, and to be able to make more trees. So that goes with our spirit and our soul as women. If you have one seed left, just one, replant that. and I'm referring to that as the little girl in you, and hold on to that and nurture that and develop from there. Because sometimes we have to go back through the years, even if we're 50, 40, 30, 20 years old, we have to go back and nurture that girl, that little girl that may have never been cared for, and we have to do it ourselves to be able to heal some of the wounds that we have so that we can go on and have healthy relationships with ourselves, with other women and men. Also, tell yourself that you are determined to be a woman anyway. A lot of times, when physical assault happens, sexual assault happens, it's about power, and unfortunately, and I'm hoping, that there's some brothers out there that can talk to the men in our communities. But sometimes, I mean, it's a sick thing to say, but sometimes, you have, some people and some men that don't want you to be women. They don't want you to be feminine. They don't want you to look nice. They don't want you to smell nice. They don't want that. And what you have to do is you have to fight. See, it's easy to be something that you're not. It's so much easier to play a part that's not really you. The real challenge is dealing with what you're born with and who you are and becoming the best at that. And that, for a lot of us, is being a woman. Also, look at yourself in the mirror. I have several mirrors in the house, and it's not because of being conceited, but it's because I want to be able to look at myself, and as you should look at yourself and tell yourself and look your own self in the eye in the mirror and tell yourself that you are beautiful, that you are special, that you are wonderful. And tell yourself that even if you don't feel it, but if you keep telling yourself that, you will become what you're telling yourself. Okay? And also, if you need to, take some days, weeks, months, or even years to self-reflect and to heal from past trauma. Like I stated before, sometimes you have to go back. A lot of times you have to go back to that child, that inner child in you, and you have to rebuild from there. And sometimes that may take a while. It all depends, because you have to identify where the problem's coming from, and you have to be willing to do some self-reflection, some deep meditation, and to be honest with ourselves, so like I said, once again, so that we can heal. And also, my last point is never lose insight of who God is, because God makes all things brand new. It's been a pleasure talking with you all. That's the end of the podcast. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can at thetruthwithtrinity.com. You can also listen to my podcast on YouTube, Anchor, or Spotify. And always remember, if you can't tell the truth with anyone else, you can with Trinity. Till next time, take care.